Mumbet's Declaration of Independence by Gretchen Wolfley, illustrated by Alex Delanois. Mumbet didn't have a last name because she was a slave. She didn't even have an official first name. Folks called her Bet or Betty. Children fondly called her Mumbet or Mumbet. Others weren't so kind. Colonel John Ashley was the richest man in Berkshire County, Massachusetts. He owned an iron mine, a forge, a sawmill, a grits mill, a general store, and 3,000 acres of farm and woodland. He also owned Mumbet. The colonel's wife, Mrs. Ashley, owned the sharpest tongue in town. All day she hurled spiteful names at Mumbet. She called her useless baggage, stubborn wench, dumb creature. "Don't mind her jabs, Lizzie," Mumbet said to her daughter. "Look at that mountain out there. Rain and wind, ice and snow tried to wear it down. But there it stands, strong and rugged, just like us." She stroked Lizzie's curls and grinned. What Mumbet did mind was someone owning her. Everyone in town worked hard, and many people worked on their own farms. Even servant and hired hands could choose to leave a cruel master. But Mumbet didn't have a choice. She was a servant for life. She gazed at the river running free at the bottom of the meadow. Freedom! She thought of it day and night. One day, Mumbet kneaded bread dough with Lizzie by her side. Glowing coals heated the oven. When it was hot enough, Mumbet shoveled out the coals and put in the bread to bake. Lizzie formed her own little loaf from leftover scraps of dough. Mrs. Ashley came in and screamed at Lizzie. "Thief! How dare you steal my food!" She raised the coal shovel to strike the girl, but Mumbet stuck out her arm to take the blow. Crack! Blood spurted from her arm. Lizzie shrieked. Mrs. Ashley stared. Mumbet wrapped a rag around the wound until the bleeding stopped. All winter long, the cut festered, but she never covered it. The wound was her badge of bravery. Folks asked, "Why, Mumbet, what ails your arm?" "Ask Madam," she replied. Mrs. Ashley scowled. Mumbet's wound was her badge of shame. In spring, Mumbet watched the river break free of ice and flood the meadow. If only she could break free. If she could have 1 minute in her life just to say, "I am free." "Scrub that kettle!" snapped Mrs. Ashley. Mumbet scrubbed and chuckled. Mrs. Ashley didn't own the river of thoughts that ran through Mumbet's head. Others were thinking about freedom too. Americans didn't like the laws and taxes Britain forced on them. Town leaders met in Colonel Ashley's study. "Take the men some food and drink," ordered Mrs. Ashley. Voices rang out as Mumbet entered the room. "The king means to take away our rights," one man shouted. "Do I have rights?" wondered Mumbet. "He would make us slaves," cried another man. "You wouldn't like that, not one bit," thought Mumbet. Colonel Ashley turned to a young lawyer with fire in his eyes.
Write this down, Mr. Sedgwick. Mankind in a state of nature are equal, free and independent.
Mumbet set down her tray. Wasn't she a part of mankind?
The great end of society is to secure those rights, wherewith God and nature have made us free.
Free. Her heart fluttered. How could she secure her freedom? The town held a parade when the American colonies declared their independence from Britain. Then local men marched off to war for 7 long years to keep hold of that independence. Thwack! Thwack! Mumbet pounded flax stalks until the fiber came free. If she could have 1 minute of freedom, she would be willing to die at the end of that minute. Thwack! Just to stand 1 minute on the earth as a free woman. Thwack! Mumbet would be free. But how? The town held a meeting to learn about the Massachusetts Constitution, the new law of the land. Mumbet slipped into the back of the hall. She couldn't see over the crowd, but she heard well enough.
All men are born free and equal.
Mumbet wrinkled her brow. Was this law meant for her? The next day she picked up a shopping basket, but she walked past the store. Mumbet stopped at the crossroads. Perhaps her plan would fail, and Mrs. Ashley would treat her worse than ever. She would take that chance. She would go to the young lawyer with fire in his eyes, Mr. Theodore Sedgwick.
Mumbet, what are you doing here?
He asked. Right then she made her Declaration of Independence. I want to be free. I've got a right to be free. Mr. Sedgwick's eyebrows shot up.
What gives you such a notion?
The new Constitution says so. All people are born free and equal, Mumbet replied. I am not a dumb creature. I deserve my freedom. Mr. Sedgwick rubbed his chin.
I don't know.
You wrote those freedom words at Colonel Ashley's house, she said. Do you believe them? Her blazing eyes met his.
Of course, but that was not the law.
The new Constitution is the law. Mumbet folded her arms.
Yes, but...
He gazed at Mumbet standing strong as a mountain and pounded his desk.
We will go to court together and test the new law. But if we lose...
I will be no worse off, Mumbet said. And if we win, I will be free. A few days later, Aloud knocked sent Mumbet to the front door.
Colonel John Ashley,
said the sheriff, holding out a paper. Colonel Ashley read it and exclaimed,
Give up Mumbet? She's my property. You know that.
You refuse? Asked the sheriff.
Of course I do. Good day then, Colonel,
said the sheriff. Mrs. Ashley slammed the door. Mumbet hid a smile. Her fight for freedom had begun. Mumbet and Mr. Sedgwick entered the courthouse on a hot August day. The room was crowded with their neighbors. Colonel Ashley argued that he had owned Mumbet for many years. She was his servant for life. Mr. Sedgwick argued that even though people owned slaves in Massachusetts, no law had ever made it legal. Now the new Constitution made it illegal. Mumbet was not anyone's servant for life. The jury and judge thought it over and agreed. Mumbet was free, and so was Lizzie. "I suppose I'll have to pay you wages now," snapped Mrs. Ashley. "No, you won't," said Mumbet. "I'm quitting your house forever." Mumbet returned to the courthouse one more time to choose 2 names for herself. From that day on, she was Elizabeth Freeman, and for the rest of her long life, she lived free as a river and strong as a mountain.